What's going on, man?
You got the PhDs popping all off there, man, behind you. What's going on, man?
Well, I wanted to. I made it green.
Okay, my name's Green.
It goes together.
Okay, that's what's up, man, because this whole thing is about reaching out, man, putting together this program, right? Here go my little, I'm an artist, so I do my own drawing. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm trying to, trying to get things together, man, for these youth out there, for these wayward youth, and I wanna establish it from here and reach out there.
Well,
But
what all prisons were you in? Because I feel like I've met you before.
when you fell, when was you doing time? Now remember, hold on, I fell in 1988. All right, so 89, I started from the county, Grateford, kicked out of there, wildin', young boy, Western, right? Wildin', kicked out of there, right?
Well, how old were you in '88?
20, 21. You know what I mean? And I was a Christian at the time, right? And I still had it in me,
Yeah.
Smoked my little weed, jailhouse wine, but I knew that I was doing a life sentence, right? And listen, I've never been locked up, never had a juvenile nor adult record, right? So I don't know how to survive in this world. A lot of my friends went to juvie places. They would call me, right? Hey, what's going on? Glen Mills, Slayton Farms. But I've never been to those places. So I was basically just gripped up during the war on drug era.
Yeah, the early '90s, late '80s. Bush,
No,
President Bush.
80s. Yes. The war on drugs and the war on crime, right? So I got swallowed up in that. But my role was selling the drugs. Listen, I was a blue collar worker, man, had a nice little job, but when I would come home from work, get my little $7, $8 an hour and buy my little stuff, and I look at my buddies, man, they doing it. They got cars, and eventually I caved in. And when I became a part of that, that just tagged me on to everything that was going on. And I end up being accused of shooting somebody, right? Killing one guy, and another guy survived. The guy who survived said, "This kid, I know this kid. He wasn't the man who shot me and killed my friend. Get out of here." They didn't want to hear him. This is where the corrupt detectives come in at.
Philadelphia?
Corrupt cops. Philadelphia, right? Get out of here. The guy come to the preliminary hearing to tell the judge that, look, this is not the man who shot me. They told him, get out of here. A prosecutor by the name of Carlos Vega. He's a vicious prosecutor. He was the ADA. All right. So he told the guy, no, you can't go in there and tell the judge that. So the guy never got a chance to get into in the preliminary hearing. And they used the corrupt detective to say, yeah, he told me that, this was the guy. He told me all detail. And it wasn't true. We just figuring this out. By the grace of the universe, we just figuring this out now, that he lied. This detective came to the preliminary hearing, and because of him, I'm sitting here right now today. All they had to do was let the guy in there. All right.
Who was the detective?
Boerva, Detective Boerva. I'm gonna let you see the brief, because I'm gonna give you a clip of it, of the brief, so you could say, damn, right? But it's over. They done, right, for all that they did. So now the guy was trying to say, this guy didn't shoot me. So now come time for trial, they went and locked this guy up forced him to make a tape confession saying that I was the person who shot him. Withheld the tape. Trial came, and then they finally introduced the tape. We were surprised by it. The judge wasn't even supposed to allow it in, but again,
Who was
this
your
was the
judge
end of
at that time?
O'Keefe, Joseph O'Keefe. I was his first homicide case, right? He's up in civil court now. He live in High Off the Hog. He stepped on my head to get me where he's at. And the lead district attorney, the lead district attorney was Judith Rubino. Punch her name up. My God. And the head of DA was Lynn Abraham, right? Newsweek called her the deadliest DA in the country, right? So all this is now coming out, the corrupt cops and the things that they did, right? And I'm just blessed. I took care of my health, right? I had to do this, right? When I gave up getting high at the age of 21, I said, listen, all my friends was going home. They had short times. I was the only lifer running wild with these guys. So I said, man, I got to get my stuff together and get the hell out of here. I don't know nothing about this. All this carnage going on around me. So long story short, I stopped smoking cigarettes, right? I started getting into the Bible then, heavy, right? And that saved my life. You know what I mean? Reading the Bible. I read the scripture where it says, I was smoking a cigarette and beating on the table and rapping at the time. And I was smoking a cigarette and rapping and reading my Bible. And it said, know that your body is the temple where God dwelleth. If you destroy your temple, God will destroy you. Boom! I looked at the cigarette. I said, oh, let me read this again and make sure this is in there. You telling me that God is within me? Right? Because I've been indoctrinated to see this thing we call God as being somewhere far off in space, you know, sitting on a throne, looking down. Oh my God, look at them in North Philadelphia. I'm going to send a plague down to them, right? That was my perception.
Right.
But now, in this Bible is jewels in there that people gloss across because they are caught up in the indoctrinational aspect of it, right? But it's small morsels of truth in there that could just blow your mind. Prime example. I read a scripture where they asked Jesus, Lord, what is the kingdom of heaven like? Right? He said, think not that the kingdom of heaven will come with observation. For lo, the kingdom of heaven is within you. Blew my mind. I took it to the reverend and said, you got to explain this to me. And he would not explain it to me in a manner that was just simple, right? And I go back to when I was 5 years old, and my mother was putting on my Easter clothes. We were getting ready to go to Easter. I was a little skinny kid, so she would take my belt and take a fork and punch a hole in the belt because the belt was a little too big, so she wanted it to fit me. So while she was fixing my belt to put my slacks on, I said to her at 5 years old, I'll never forget this day. I said, Mom, where's God? And she looked at me and paused. She said, baby, God is within you, and God is everywhere. I didn't even question it. You know, I was a nosy kid, you know, but that right there, right, was something that resonated with me all those years later when I was up Western reading the Bible. The kingdom of heaven is within you, right? God is within you, right? All of it came to fruition. So from that day on, my transition began. No more weed, no more jailhouse wine, no more hanging with, you know, guys that's, you know, not trying to get the hell out of jail. And, excuse me.
Yeah, you're in like a box.
Yeah, right. And it's all right. It's all right. I'm in the box right now. The dude Beretta, who had the homicide, he beat it and left the country. He wasn't like OJ. OJ wanted to stay in the country and, you know, parade around, and look what happened to him.
Oh.
But Beretta left. He's in Ireland. He's living in Ireland now, living his life out till he died. But he said, yeah, I think he was in the county for a year. He said for a year, I was in a cement box. So I'm saying to the young kids who may be looking at this is the size of the cell that I'm in, right? And just picture yourself, young man, young woman, right, as going to your mother's bathroom. And that's the size of the cell where your bunk is at. You're living in a bathroom for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, right? So I say all that to say this, that I found God within me, right? Within you, within everybody that I see, within the sun, within the moon, everywhere, and I know people may say, oh my God, that's, but no. So that was my introduction, my awakening, even when I didn't even know a lot of things.
What year was that?
That was 1989. Right?
So you went through the 90s as Christian in prison?
Yes, yes.
That was a rough
happened?
time.
Yes, it was, but I refused to, and not denigrating Islam or anything, but I was not transferring over to Islam as a lot of my friends were because they were afraid. So they were becoming Muslims out of fear. And you had a few that became genuine Muslims and who were sincere in seeking Islam, right? And I don't take nothing from them. But I'm saying I was all right where I was at, right? And there was no need for me to jump from Christianity to, FOI, to Sunni, to Shia. It was no need, right? I got what I needed out of this Bible. And as time went on, I had an old head who said, listen, man, I'm getting ready to go home. I'm giving you these books. And he gave me these books, box of books. I looked in them. World's Greatest Men of Color. What is this? Ancient Ethiopian Kushite Empire, right? What the heck is this? Now, I'm familiar with these places in the Bible. Well, I said, oh, that sounds good. The Hebrew Israelites, what's this? Oh. But I never read it because I felt all I needed was my Bible, right? But as time went on, back then, when you go through the hole, you take all your books with you.
Yeah.
And I was able to run through them books, man, and I'm going to tell you, when I left out the hole, right, I had new glasses on. I read Mandela's book when he was incarcerated in Robbins Island.
I read that,
and it was the same cages that he was in. When I was in the hole, those were the same cages. I said, what the hell? And it just opened me up, right?
Mandela, he got, what was it, like 8 squares of toilet paper a day?
Yeah.
He had to save and 2 buckets. Yes. A bucket of water and a bucket for the bathroom.
Yeah. So I saw the correlation, right? And I said, wow. And I said, I'm in the same. So that's when I started waking into, the history of the country, slavery and things of that nature. Now, was I bitter? No. Because for some reason, I saw guys who were bitter, and I saw what happened to them. They ended up on medication. They ended up in a hole. They couldn't fight their cases. So I couldn't become bitter, right? So me reading those books that the old head gave me just took me to the next level. So now I'm opening up to psychology, right? Now I'm being drawn to neurology, the study of the brain, because at the age of 22, it was hard for me to sleep. Like, I'll probably go to sleep 2 o'clock. That's not normal, right? But thoughts is racing. Mm-hmm. But what I didn't know was from 1 to 7, from 7 to 14, from 14 to 21, your body is building. Right? Your kidneys, your lungs, your spleen, everything is your bone structure. All that is being put together. The house is being built. After 21, everything is set for the house. Now the host comes in, which is personality, ego, right? Right? Intelligence, right? All that's now starting to open because now you're moving on a abstract plane. So now I'm having these thoughts and I don't know what's going on. Why? But all in all, I found out that no, the thoughts are normal. You just have to, this your house. Control what's going on in the house. And from psychology, I learned that. And I said, wow. So I was able to survive in prison at a time at the tender age of 21 and 22, when guys my age who didn't understand why they were up all night like that, they went to the psych. They went to see Dr. Warros. And Dr. Warros was a guy up under there. This is an old white guy, tall, right? When you go to see him, you sit in his office, he got the heat on. It's blasting, it's hot. You sweating in there. You're like, where is this guy? You want to get the heck out of there, right? And finally he comes in with a plaid suit on and a case in his hand, a doctor case like the old doctor cases they used to have back in the day. And he'll come in, how you doing? That's the only thing he gonna say to you. He gonna pull out a book and he gonna flip the book open and they got all these psychotropic drugs here. And he said, what's the problem? I can't sleep. We're going to give you triquiliquil. And they give you that. And then next thing you know, you see the guys who took the medication. Their hands like, hey, man, what's going on? What's going on, man? You all right, man? Yeah, ain't nothing. They lay their knee shaking, right? And then you slowly watch them deteriorate. And you're like, damn, what's happening to my man? Yo, get off that stuff, man. No, I'm cool. Because they're using it to get high. Now, this was 1989, 90, 91, right? But those guys were a rarity, right? By me being a Huntington, going to Huntington prison, that was the universe or the university for me. Why? Because when I sat at the table in Huntington, unlike Grateford, unlike Western, unlike Albion, when I sat in Huntington as a young man, 21, 22, I would hear people talk about real estate and how to attain it. I would hear people talk about how to open up a gas station, right? I would hear people talk about how to put your religion together, right? Wow, these people speaking Chinese to me. And I like this language because they're men. They look like me, white, black, brown, and they just talking fluently. And I wanted that. So I had to step my game up, and I start asking questions. And one thing about those guys back then, and it's rare to find those elders anymore. They're a dying breed in here, and I'm one of them because I was the young man. So I try the baton that they passed to me, I try to give to the youth today, right? But I'm a dinosaur. I'm by myself. Because everybody's looking at the younger guys like, man, the hell with them. Let them burn, crash and burn. These guys are smoking deuce. They smoking drugs, man, that you will find underneath your mother's sink, all put together. So the young men, I try to talk to them. I reach them. I try to sit them down, right? And you have a few that's willing to listen. And those are the ones that gravitate toward me. And I do what the old heads did for me up Huntington. They gave me books. And said, listen, I'm going to give you this book, but don't use it as a coffee rack, okay? Don't be eating chips in the bed reading my book, because then you're going to have to buy me another one. And then when I start getting addicted to these books that they were giving me, I wanted more. And they said, okay, here's a catalog. Now, I don't have this one. You could get that one, right? So I started buying books, and that was the greatest thing I could do. I didn't have a television for 16 years. 16 years. I fell in love with reading. Right?
I knew a guy who he chose to get a typewriter over a TV. He had it about 30 years in when I met him, and he still had no interest in ever getting a TV.
No.
He'd rather have a typewriter in his book.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's 100%. And with me, the only reason I got a television was because when I came to Grateford, after doing 16 years up Huntington, right, the university, it was like I went to a public school down there, and everybody was playing games. So I had to go in solitude. I had to pay to get a single cell, and I said, man, because I can't really relate to a lot of these guys because everybody got an angle. Everything is about what I could get from him, right? You got anything to smoke? So I noticed that it was a bad omen, a bad aura in Grateford, from the elders to the youth. So I said, wow, okay, let me get a television, let me buy a single cell, and let me get my head together. So, because I'm going to have to survive and thrive in this, right? So,
Well,
yeah,
after
man.
I had a TV too, and I could imagine like going the years without it and then getting one.
Yeah,
But when you
yeah.
get a TV, because it's almost like a black hole. Like if it can suck you in,
Sure,
and
sure,
you
sure.
gotta have that self control to turn it off to
Yes,
read.
yes,
Like none
yes,
of my
yes.
when I had cellies, they didn't understand that I needed to turn it off, so because I
Yeah.
wanted to read. Like there's a study time in
Yeah,
my cell.
exactly,
Uh,
exactly. I used to tell guys who were adamant readers, but they had a television on or they had a radio on. I said it's best to cut all that off
yeah.
because you could absorb it better, and that's how my memory was so sharp. After I got washed out all that negative stuff at the age of 21, I built my mind up, my soul, my spirit, right? I built up my personality, transformed, right? And I'm the living example of, staying on that road, right, of seeking knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, and falling in love with it, and utilizing it as a means to protect yourself in an environment, man, that is 90% negativity, man, negative, you know. Nobody really wants to hear what Black got to say. That's why I'm glad you put together this podcast, man, because people need to hear us. People need to know that we're here and sad but true, and that we have a lot to offer. We have a lot to say.
What
Uh,
prisons were
uh,
you in during the '90s?
and well, I did my time up in Huntington
Oh,
in the
okay,
90s. I was in the university, you
that's a
know.
rough one.
Yeah, I was sharpening, man. So at 201, I got transferred from there to Grateford.
Okay, all right. How long were you at Graterford? Because that's then probably where I
I,
met you.
from 201 till now.
Yeah, I probably ran into you through there.
Yeah, so you probably came through. I had to see you probably, but yeah, man. But I was low key. I was always, either working out or studying. So I was that guy over here. I wasn't the guy that was in the mix of things.
Shakur, I used to hang out with him,
All
and
right, then I got to know you. What I'm trying to do is, and anybody who's watching this, nationally and internationally, I need y'all to help me continue to help the men in here, right? And what do I mean by that? If any of y'all that's watching this know a psychologist or know a neurologist, brain surgeon, or anybody in those fields, right? Let them know that what I'm trying to do is save souls, save minds, right? In in this place. And I need any and all information, new journal reviews on brain anatomy, new reviews on the upgrade of psychological studies from, the old Freudian days till now. What have we infused from Eastern and Western and gained a better understanding of psychology, you know, biology, because the body is important. If the body is not right, then, the mind will be imbalanced. If the mind is not right, then the body can be imbalanced. So I'm trying to reach out to everybody out there, all y'all out there. I'm crying out, right? I'm saying put your intellectual hat to a side and come from your heart and send me information, right? You can mail it to me, right? Now books, and you know this as well, they have to go through a process. So I'm going to
yeah,
put all that
I put it
information.
up there.
Because I need to correspond, right? I'm willing to pay for a phone call, right? To get that insight. And I want to talk to you, and I know we don't have much time, about doing a podcast from the phone, right?
That could
For for
happen.
for for, for out there,
Yeah,
you know, to speak with the youth and things of that nature, those who were in the same situation I was in as a young man
it's so
and
hard
wonder,
though to get them to listen, man.
I know. So you just gotta
I mean,
put it
they'll hear you, they'll listen to you, but they're not
right.
hearing. Like I have a
Right.
14-year-old nephew, and it's
Yeah.
like talking to a brick wall.
All right. Well, let me say this to you. We have to understand that we came around in our time. People was talking to us, right? And they may have said that too. Yeah, it's just going in one ear and the other. But your job is to plant the seed. And in time, right? Experience, trial and error is going to cause him to
That's the
revert back
water
to
for the
what's there.
seed.
Sure. So we don't just throw the towel in and say, because we looking for instant gratification. We've been indoctrinated in this country to live a microwave life. You put it in, you punch it, and that's it. Or somebody asks you, do you believe in God? Yes or no. And they don't want you to get into any, philosophical perspective of it or broaden it. They don't want to do that. Everybody's attention span is like that of a gnat, right? And
Yeah.
nobody have time to hear you out. I get that. But I'm saying one thing about the truth, and I learned this, that once those seeds are planted, it's designed for a certain time for him to sprout or her to sprout, and they're going to get it, right? We just looking for it now. Instant gratification. No. You're not the man. The body that you in now was not the body you was in when you was 7 years old. Right?
Yeah.
The body you was in at 7 years old is not the body that you're in now. Okay? Because it took time to what? Develop and evolve, right? So I say that to say this, that we plant the seed. That's our job. And I understand we get frustrated at times. Oh, they're not listening. Right? Just plant the seed. That's
But
all.
yeah,
Just be
I
like a
this
planter.
I did 2 prison sentences. My first
Mm-hmm.
one, I never stepped foot in the law library in any library, and I remember
Wow.
the old heads, the old timers.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember their names. The one was a young Muslim guy named Sunni, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But they used to always say as they were going to the library, "You better get them books, get in this library." And I'd
Yeah.
say, "Hey man, I ain't gonna do that. What do I need to do that for?" And they said, "Well,
I'm
then
out.
you'll do it the next time you come." And
Damn.
yeah,
Yeah, but
but
hey,
they were right. They
they
were
were
right.
right.
And
But
everybody who I was there with and went home, they all came back too. We never changed
see,
our mentality.
there
You
you
know?
go. There you go. And that's what I want energy to be based on. Showing people, and I know this is not easy, right? And like you said, they don't hear it, right? They hear it, but they don't get it because it's hard to break this down. But I found a way to get to them to say, listen, man, we got to understand our thoughts, how we think, right? And we got to start looking at our thoughts now instead of just allowing them to, run us wherever they want to go, right? We have to look at our thoughts and wonder why. What are thoughts, right? Right? What are the nature and structure of thought? Who talking about that? What is the nature and structure of thought? This guy's crazy. And that's what some guys say, man, black crazy. But these are studies that are for those who are sincere and who truly want to make a transition. Now, I may have talked to 10 guys and one guy hold on to it or get it. Hey, my job is not complete, but I've made progress, right? So what is the nature and structure of thought? How do we think? Why do we think, right? Right? What is it, right? And those are the things I want to tap on to, and it takes time. It takes a little time, right? But like I said, you just got to make it appealing, and you got to try to plant the seed and move on. It ain't like when we plant a seed. Like say I want to grow an apple tree. I don't plant the seed and stand there waiting on it saying, this seed got to crack germinate, man. What the heck is going on? Pouring water in there, moving it around, digging in there. No, just put it in there, man, and let it just, nature take care of all the other stuff. His trial and error will cause him to turn in and look at himself, right? If not now, later, right? Better late than never, right? So just know that our job is just to plant the seeds. We're just the seed planters and move
The
on.
the goal would be then for the youth.
Sure. And adults can listen to it because it transcends, right?
Yeah.
But the root of it is to get them at a young age so they could be at least aware of how they think and why they think and know where it comes from. right? And once
Yeah.
I believe, once they understand what the problem is, that understanding will bring about its own, answers. I truly believe that.
Some knowledge from
That
another
from
world. 'Cause
somebody
that's another
who
world
been.
in there.
You see what I'm saying? That's the stuff. See, I need people could think, creative people. You're a
Yeah.
creative person. I can see from your background, man. You're not just left-brained, right? A lot of guys are just left-brained, and a bunch of thoughts go on, and they eventually imbalance themselves. You use the right brain too, right? I'm a self-taught artist, right? I educated myself. I can't say, oh, the education department and SCI made me the man I am. No, I ain't even give them that chance.
That's
So,
actually an adverse current. All my education, all my
exactly.
certificates and everything, I had to
Exactly.
fight to get those.
That's right. That's right.
And they kept trying to throw my books away.
All that, yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't give them none of that.
Yeah.
Everything I learned was from the spirit, right? From my intellect, and from me, right? Not in an egotistical way, me, right? But in a way to say, this is what I wanted, this road I wanted to go, this the desire I want to do. I want to be. I have to be something on the street. It's negative. So how can I turn it around? And the most pivotal place was to turn it around was here. I'm not gonna wait till I get on the street and
Yeah.
do anything. I say I got to put the work in now. So again, another pearl came up in my head from 1989, reading the Bible, and it says that seek ye the kingdom of heaven first, and His righteousness, and all things will be added. It's truth in that. I had to seek and find that which was within me, that knew all things, that made the structure of this body, that made the heart, that made the kidneys, that made the lungs, the magnificent brain to think, to comprehend, that made the eyes. It knows my journey. So I just had to align myself with that intelligence that was already there. You see? It is not my making. I'm just happy to be on the road, with this transition, this progression that's going on. And I was able to humble myself and align myself with that. And it knows your destiny, it knows your past, present, and your future. And this is true. And this is all religions is trying to get you to do. But what happens is they want to hold you in and say you're in the flock. You got to stay with us. And that's where the problems come in at. But it's basic. You just want to show a person how to get in tune with themselves. And if they align themselves with themselves, they could hear the right word and they'll know how to navigate through this world. Everybody here has a purpose. Nobody's purposeless. And I know society at places tell us that. But no, you're not here just because of a heat of passion with your mother and father that night. No. You are here with a purpose. You're here to work on yourself. This planet that we on is not a playground. It's a school. And we all here to learn. When you go to the maternity ward, look at those little kids. Look them in their eyes. They've been here before. They just getting a shot at it again. You know what I mean? And we had our
One way to
shots,
put it,
right?
yeah.
Right? So Grandmaster Flash said in the Furious Five, there's a song called The Message. He said, a child is born with no state of mind, blind by the ways of mankind. So there you
I'll have to
have it,
look that one
man.
up.
Yeah, it's called The Message. It
Okay.
goes back 1970, man. But he opened up and said, a child is born with no state of mind, blind by the ways of mankind. God is smiling on you, but he's frowning too because only God knows what you've been through, right? And they give it up.
Oh, that's
That's
nice.
why it's called The Message. These children, right, they don't have bad minds. It's just bad usage of a potentially good mind. And they have
Okay.
time to change. We just don't want to give it to them because we feel that we adults and it got to be this way.
One of the big problems now, James, is like the parents, because the parents are my generation now. We're from the generation where the phones, all the technology just like came
Sure.
out. So we're
Ah,
like in like sort of like a limbo state. Like, do we learn it or
yeah,
don't we? Where
man.
the
Damn.
kids, the youths, they learned it, and then our parents
Yes.
don't know it.
Yeah. Yes.
We're not teaching our kids. Our
Sure.
kids are
No.
growing up learning themselves from things like
Sure.
TikTok
Sure.
and
Sure.
Instagram, things like that.
Wow. Wow. And it's bad because everything is in your hand. And if
Yeah.
you don't have it in your hand, it ain't in here. Right?
And it
When we
has to
came-
be what they call a short or a reel, under 60
Exactly.
seconds.
Wow. And we already, scientists is coming out now saying, oh, you got Australia that said no more kids 16 until you 16, man. You can't use this. China figured it out a long time ago.
Yeah.
They kids only get like an hour on there. And we talk about that's undemocratic. You
Yeah,
can't tell that kid. Right? But look at their kids traveling throughout the world, right? And going to different colleges and universities throughout the world and gaining that knowledge and going back home and building up their country, right? They kids are not at spring break drinking a whole jug of beer, popping pills, right? They go to college to learn, right?
Yeah.
And our kids go, as it's a fad, something to do. And then when we get out of college, we owe all this debt. And they ain't playing with us. They like this. There's interest on that too. You missed 2 months? Okay, I want it all. Get my money, right? It's a farce. It's a joke. It's a hustle, right? Just like prison is a hustle.
Yeah.
Now the value is $70-something for a prisoner. In 1970, it was only $15,000.
When I got out, I was baffled at, like, how are they making a profit? I couldn't understand that. Like, why? I noticed in 2022 when Tom Wolf left out,
Sure.
our prison emptied out. Like, there was so many open cells. Like, everybody was making parole. And then the next year, nobody made parole. It filled back up. It took almost 2 years to fill back up.
Yes.
But I was trying to understand, like, the schematics behind it. And there's money to be made from us in there. Like cattle.
Sure. Here's the switch.
It's gonna...
When I